Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Gautam Roy. Let's now take you back to our top story where we've had Donald Trump claiming in an interview that he has spoken over the phone with Russian President Vladimir Putin, where Putin is said to have expressed concern about a lot of people dying in the Ukraine conflict, and this seems to be Donald Trump initiating his bid to end that war between Russia and Ukraine, although the Kremlin has said it won't confirm or deny that any conversation or conversations have taken place between the two leaders. Now, we're joined by Ambassador S.R. Tayal, former Indian senior diplomat, to talk about this. Good evening to you, Ambassador Tayal. What do you make of Donald Trump's claim and the Russian caginess on whether these talks have taken place or not?
Apparently, President-elect and President-candidate Donald Trump also had been in touch with President Putin. All kinds of reports are there, perhaps 6-7 talks were there. And now, certainly, if President Trump has said that some talks have taken place. Now, Ukraine President Zelensky is scheduled to visit Washington and meet President Trump next week. And so some contours of whatever plan President Trump has to have some kind of a pause or truce or ceasefire in the ongoing conflict, that is not really known. But President Trump has said that US has already spent almost $300 billion on this Ukraine, on supporting Ukraine in this conflict. He has also mentioned a lot of rare earths are there. It is about £10 trillion worth of rare earths in Ukraine. Now, certainly President Trump, if we see the past record, President Trump doesn't come with any ideological baggage. His only mission and aim and declared goal is to make America great again. So he will certainly not like a continuation of an endless war, and many say an unwinnable war for the West, for NATO and for Ukraine. And we also recall that President Trump had left Afghanistan. In February 2020, he came to an agreement with the Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan, the so-called Doha Accords. And even President Biden followed that and quit Afghanistan. So if we analyze that the war between Ukraine and Russia, which is ongoing, is unwinnable for Ukraine, that means America and its allies in NATO will have to continue to pour in lots of sums of money and weapons and treasure to prop up Ukraine. Perhaps President Trump would not like that to go on endlessly. So that will be his leverage over President Zelensky. Now, what is his leverage over President Putin? President Putin perhaps has achieved whatever aims or goals he had declared when he embarked on this so-called special operation in April of 2022. Crimea is already with Russia, and most of the territory which was occupied by Russian-speaking Ukrainians has already been taken over by Russia. And all reports from the field are that Russians are inching forward in the Ukrainian territory, and Ukraine is facing a shortage of manpower because Ukraine's population is limited. And so Ukraine is also trying to go into Kursk and occupy more Russian territory for some kind of a bargain. So war fatigue will set in, and President Putin will be very happy if there is a pause or truce or ceasefire, because then more or less he is like a winner.
But it's also being said, Ambassador, that Putin and his forces have of late been making gains against Ukraine, and at this moment ceasefire would perhaps serve the interest of Ukraine, that is Zelensky, more than Russia's.
Yes, because if the reports are right that Russian forces are inching forward and occupying more villages and territory, then of course a ceasefire would be in favor of Ukraine. And this is also being said that Ukraine may not join, give a guarantee, it will not join NATO for 20 years. So face saving. So there can be contours of some kind of a arrangement where both sides can save face, but the conflict itself, the bloody conflict, could come to a pause. I would not like to use the word ceasefire or truce or, but some kind of a pause, and where more negotiations can take place. But President Trump certainly has something in his mind, some contours of some kind of a, not an agreement, but some arrangement by which the two sides can claim that they achieved their, some of the, at least partly, the objectives of their conflict, and pause the ongoing bloody conflict, the air bombings, drones, and more loss of man, material, and lives.
Yes, certainly, and a pause or an ending of this conflict would be in everyone's interests. But we have Donald Trump as the president of the US now, and he always looks for pursuing America's interest in greater earnest than the rest of the world. And rare earths are in play, and he's after rare earths in right earnest, be it in the case of Greenland or now in the case of Ukraine. So, do you think that will also become an inalienable part of the deal?
Somehow it seems that the world of geo-economy seem to be coming back, you know, Greenland and rare earths in Ukraine and Gulf of Mexico and Gaza. So, Panama Canal. But it is, what one has to realize is that President Trump is a deal maker and is a great negotiator. So what he publicly says and what he has in mind, that what would be the final solution or could be a possible solution, can be two different things. And like imposing tariff on Mexico and Canada, then pausing it for a month. So what he of course wants a truce, because he, President Trump, leading America, does not want to spend endlessly in this war, which is unwinnable for Ukraine, United States, and NATO. And since Ukraine is the weaker side, after all, in this conflict with Russia, so it will have to concede territory. But on what terms, and it will be very difficult. Elections are also due in
And what about the interest of the European allies? Because a lot of them are NATO partners, and they have a higher stake in the way, in a sense that Russia is far more closer to them, and some of them joined NATO very recently as well.
I think that would be President Trump's highest objective, that America does not spend more on Ukraine, and the NATO countries, the European countries, they take over the slack. And if they continue to fund Ukraine with no burden on American treasury, then President Trump may lose interest. Then he says it's a European war. In fact, he has one of his advisors has said this, that this is a European war. So what is America doing there? So if Europe has the guts, has the money, and has the willpower to match or to plug the gap, if United States reduces its military assistance, then President Trump should be fine. He said that, all right, it's European war, so you Europeans sort it out. I'm out.
Right. Well, we'll have to see what happens. Although Europe has been trying to pull more than its weight vis-a-vis the US of late, giving fighter jets, both F-16s in use in Europe, and then of course even commissioned out Mirage 2000s. We'll have to see where it goes. Thanks a lot for joining us and talking about the initiation perhaps of a process of peace in Ukraine, if at all? Ambassador Thayer.